Let me tell you, if you'd asked me a year ago whether I'd ever chase a janitor through a rain-soaked city night, risking my career, my company's future, and let's be honest, me reputation for control, just to see what he was up to, I'd have laughed you right out of the boardroom. But life has a funny way of turning your certainties upside down, you know? My name's Catherine Collins, CEO of Nexus Technology Sat Least. That's the version the press likes. Cool, composed, Harvard-trained, all sharp lines and quarterly targets. But that version doesn't mention what happens when whispers start swirling. When you realize the quietest person in the building, the janitor, of all people has access to your most sensitive systems, and nobody seems to know a thing about who he really is. I guess the whole thing really kicked off late one Tuesday, under those harsh fluorescent lights that make the whole office look more like a hospital than a place where ideas are supposed to change the world. Security footage, a moved computer mouse, a little note from the new CFO about files being touched, and there he was, Jack Miller, pushing his cart, blending in, slipping into the R&D wing after hours, just as I'm gearing up for a product launch the competition would kill to get their hands on. Do I have a potential data leak? I thought. Or is the universe just bored and making me paranoid for fun? I decided right then I wasn't delegating this if something went down. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Jack was a ghost on Paperno College, minimum wage, perfect attendance, single father to an 8-year-old daughter named Emma. Nothing fancy, nothing that would explain how he was moving through my building like he owned the place. But the cleaning staff adored him. Covered shifts for everyone. Remembered birthdays with little notes. Always had a kind word for the late-night developers, but to the management, he was basically invisible. For years, no complaints. No drama, just a guy in a loose blue uniform, blending into the marble floors and glass walls of Nexus while the rest of us raced toward whatever we thought mattered. I watched him one night, a few weeks before launch, polishing the conference room, Glass's eyes flicked, just for a second, to the financials on the screen inside. Did he understand what he was looking at, or was it just a trick of the light? I wasn't taking chances. When Marcus from security asked if I wanted him fired, I hesitated. Something about Jack didn't fit the profile of a thief or a spy, but something was off, and I had to know what. So I followed him. Literally. You ever tail someone through traffic at 11 p.m., heart pounding, praying your expensive German sedan doesn't stick out among a line of battered Civics and pickup trucks? Jack drove past the well-lit malls, the neat lawns, into a neighborhood where the sidewalks buckled and the streetlights flickered. He parked outside a rundown building labeled Westside Community Resource Center. I watched him lug a bag inside, waited, then slipped in myself, careful as a cat burglar in heels. What I found wasn't a spy ring, it was a classroom. Jack, standing in front of a whiteboard, teaching a bunch of kids with secondhand backpacks about algorithm efficiency and systems architecture, making jokes about database logic like it was a sitcom. He was good. Not just with the tech, but with the kids. You could see it in their faces, the way they sat up straighter, the way they wanted to prove themselves to him. He handed out refurbished laptops afterward. "These are yours to keep," he told one little boy. "Just remember, the password is your birthday." I felt like a trespasser, and when Jack caught me outside, I mumbled something about donation. She didn't buy it, but he was too polite to call me out. That night, I dug deep, really deep. Turns out, Jack Miller wasn't just a janitor. He'd been a senior systems architect at Empirical Software, the very company Nexus built its core framework on. His name was on patents, white papers. He'd blown the whistle on medical software shortcuts, sued for wrongful termination, and after winning a small settlement, found himself blacklisted. His wife died of cancer soon after. And just like that, the industry moved on, and so did Jack, to whatever work he could find to support his daughter. I sat with that for a while, thinking about what kind of world discards people like him, then pats itself on the back for innovation. The next day, I visited the West Side Center in daylight. Diane, the director, couldn't believe someone from Nexus was interested. She showed me how Jack, on his own time, had transformed their programs, teaching coding, digital literacy, setting up internships, all for free. The equipment was donated, the rooms patched together with duct tape and hope, but the sense of purpose, and there was real something you can't fake, can't buy. That week, I authorized the donation under the company's name, kept it quiet, new computers, repairs, room to breathe. Jack didn't say a word about it, just showed up, rolled up his sleeves, and kept teaching. It wasn't until disaster struck 3 days before launch, critical software flaw, the whole exec floor in meltdown that I finally crossed the line. I called Jack out of the hallway, ignored the raised eyebrows, sat him down in front of the error logs. Watching him work, I realized he still had that muscle memory, that spark, his hands moving over the keyboard with the certainty of someone who knows not just code, but the people behind the code, the mistakes they make, and the ways to patch things so the world doesn't fall apart. It's not the integration layer, he told me. It's a memory allocation issue from the old framework. There's a workaround, but I'll need full access to be sure. In that moment, I made a call, brought him into the boardroom, introduced him to the team as our new consultant for 48 hours. You should have seen their faces. 46 hours later, Nexus launched on time. The bug was fixed better than fixed. It was improved, thanks to Jack's solution. Our stock jumped, the PR team celebrated. But what stuck with me was the look on Jack's face, equal parts proud and uncertain, standing there in his janitor's uniform at the all-hands meeting as I told the whole company his story. We've been stepping over him to reach our offices, blind to the expertise cleaning up after us, I said. I offered him a leadership role. He turned it down, steady as ever, said he'd found more value mentoring those kids than he ever did climbing the corporate ladder. So we made a new deal. Nexus would partner with Westside, build a community tech initiative, open doors for kids who'd never otherwise see the inside of coding boot camp. Jack would run it. He accepted, finally smiling like the weight had shifted just a little off his shoulders. In the months that followed, I found myself spending more and more time at the center, not because I had to, but because it reminded me why I started in tech in the first place. My son Nathan joined Jack's class sesh, started showing me games he'd built, asking questions about logic and design, lighting up in a way I hadn't seen since before my divorce. Jack and I became partners, then friends, maybe something more, to single parents finding common ground over coffee and project plans, trust growing where suspicion once lived. Board meetings got interesting, ROI debates, funding approvals, but I stood my ground. It's not charity, I told them. It's building our future talent, correcting institutional blindness. Jack, ever the quiet revolutionary, kept pushing, mentoring, connecting, refusing to be pulled back into the rat race. And somewhere along the line, our lives intertwined. Dinners, late-night conversations about loss and hope, our kids teaming up on weekend STEM projects, laughter sneaking in where stress used to sit. 6 months later, the center unveiled the Jack Miller Technology Lab. The plaque said, "For the man who saw what we could become before we knew ourselves." As I spoke to the crowd, executives, parents, kids, all mixed together, I realized real innovation isn't about profit margins. It's about spotting potential where nobody else is looking, trusting that value shows up in unexpected places. After the ceremony, Jack stood beside me, watching the kids build robots out of old circuit boards. Having second thoughts about turning down the architect gig, I teased. He just smiled, nodding toward his daughter and my son. Some architectures matter more than software. He was right. Maybe we both needed to be knocked off our tracks to see that. Now, as I look at Nexus thriving, yes, but finally grounded in something more than numbers, I can't help but wonder how many other stories are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to pay attention. How many brilliant minds get dismissed because they don't fit a mold? What would happen if every company looked just a little harder at the people they overlook? So, let's open this up. When does success really matter? When it's measured in profits or in the lives you change along the way? Tell me what you think. Where's the line between opportunity and oversight? And who are we missing right now just because we're not looking closely enough? Let's talk about it.